Well, hello everybody. So this was a bit of an interesting week for New Comic Day because I actually went straight to the manga section and not the new comic releases. So unlike me, but I actually was picking up a gift for my husband. Our anniversary was the day after, and there was a brand new release by Junji Ito, who's become one of his favorite writers. So had to make sure I grabbed one of those. And of course there was some stuff I was looking for, so I actually hit up two comic shops in my area, which you may recognize if you watched my videos before. So let's get into it, and then I'll show you what I got at the end. So the first shop I went to was Gutter Pop Comics. I actually saw on Instagram that they got some of these in late last week after I had already made my trip to the shop. So this time around, I had to make it a priority. And they were actually out of a couple of the new Comic Day books I was looking for, but I was able to find one very, very cool 1 in 25 variant. But, of course, I had to browse. It looked like they added some new comics to the wall, which was pretty exciting. And they had some pretty cool stuff by the counter. That tends to be where they put some of the nicer stuff that they're getting in. But I still had two new releases I was looking for, so I made a stop into Kingpin Comics, which has a very large selection of new Comic Day books and variant covers. And fortunately, I was able to find both of those books that I was looking for. And I was able to find the DC Sonic the Hedgehog book, which has been missing every time I've gone out looking for it, so I was happy to finally be able to add that to the stack. On one of my previous trips to this shop, I actually got a comment from someone asking to see more of the toys that they had, so there you go. And they actually do have some pretty cool stuff in their back issue bins. I always kind of wrote them off as mainly a new comic day shop, but I've actually been pretty impressed by the selection they have. This spot I'm looking at right here just kind of seems like some miscellaneous, kind of cool stuff. Not really a theme going on here, just kind of cool stuff. They labeled it the fun box, so there you go. But most of these bins are very recent back issues, which is great if you missed anything and you're looking to fill a current run. A lot of good stuff. They got a good chunk of the Penguin. Got some Green Lantern War Journal right there. That's an awesome story if you missed out on that one. And I thought I was done after that, but I actually decided I had to turn back because there was something extra I needed to get for my husband. So as you can see, the first thing I grabbed was this. It was the Liminal Zone 2 by Junji Ito. This is his newest American release, and my husband was so happy to get this. He was actually reading the Liminal Zone Part 1 the night before in preparation for this, and he kind of figured that I was going to pick it up for him. And I had a few other things as well planned to give to him, but this was just kind of icing on the cake because he absolutely loves this stuff. If you've never seen Junji Ito's art before, it is some freaky stuff, so I would highly recommend it. I'm personally not a big fan of manga, not the biggest fan of Japanese media in general, but I actually do enjoy this. He's gotten me to read some of his short stories, and I'm a pretty big horror fan, so very inspired by H.P. Lovecraft, a lot of body horror, very, very weird stuff, but really cool and interesting, so yeah, definitely look into that. If you're into manga, or even if you're not, I would highly recommend checking some of his stuff out. So the first shop I went to was actually out of a couple of the things I was looking for, but I was able to snag this Absolute Batman number 7, the 1 in 25 variant, and I absolutely love this cover. You have young Bruce Wayne being swarmed by bats. So yeah, I like this. I've been picking up a lot of these 1 in 25s lately, particularly for the Absolute stuff. I really like grabbing these because I'm a big fan of that universe, so very cool, and got that for cover price. And the other thing I got from that first shop was Absolute Green Lantern number 1. If you saw my video from last week, I picked up the 1 in 25 variant from the same shop, and I loved that story, so I actually had to go back and get a cover A. So then I went over to a different shop, and I was actually able to get something I missed out on a couple weeks ago. It was the DC and Sonic the Hedgehog, and I really like Sonic, I really like DC, so this looks like it'll be a fun read. And when I was looking for this on release day, they actually only had the blank sketch cover, and the guy behind the counter was telling me that they finally got these in. They had just been really behind on their shipments for some reason, so finally came in, but better late than never, so I'm very excited to check that out. I love this cover, so very happy with that. And then we get into one of my favorite comics coming out at the moment. You gotta check this out if you're not. Batman Dark Patterns. This is issue number 5. So I'm getting the vibe this is pretty similar to Legends of the Dark Knight from like the 90s, where you get like a few issue story arcs, and they're all just pretty focused and detective oriented, and the only real difference is that this is the same creative team doing this, while Legends of the Dark Knight kind of rotated around, but they are doing a phenomenal job with this. The first story arc was 3 issues, and now we're on the second, and this is part 2 of that. And Batman is investigating someone who fell out of a building. Very interesting stuff. And I love stuff like this where Batman is just kind of doing his Batman thing, working with Gordon, and not kind of crowded with some of the other characters that you get in the main Batman title. I really like stuff like this, and it doesn't get talked about nearly enough. So if you're not reading Batman Dark Patterns and you are a fan of the Caped Crusader, if you kind of like some of his 90s stuff a little more than what they're doing now, I would highly recommend checking this out. And then the last thing I grabbed, this is another one of my favorite current releases, and this is Aquaman issue number 4. I've been loving this. I've been wanting a good ongoing Aquaman series for a little while now, and this is definitely delivering, and I'm really enjoying some of the changes that have been made to the character since Absolute Power. I don't want to give too much away, but Aquaman has a bit of a different ability set than we're used to seeing him with, and yeah, it's been pretty cool so far. This one looks interesting. It looks like Aquaman is in some hot water and you got this mermaid lady kind of seducing him there. I don't know what's going on with that, but I'm excited to find out. And I thought I was done after that, but I actually had to turn back around to Kingpin, and I had to grab a couple more things for my husband. So, if you've watched any of my previous videos, the first time my husband and I went to Kingpin together, he picked up a copy of Little Batman, which is a little kid's story about Damian Wayne becoming Little Batman. And he absolutely loves this story. And so I decided I wanted to mess with him a little bit. He messed with me on April Fool's Day and bought me that Harley Quinn comic. So I decided I was going to mess with him. And I actually wound up giving him his gifts on a live stream. So I blindfolded him. I showed the audience what he was getting. But then I handed him Little Batman 3 and 4. And dude, he was stoked. Like, if this was all I picked up for him, he would have been absolutely over the moon excited. And yeah, he loves this stuff. So it was a good decision, but did not get the reaction from him that I was expecting to. And his reaction to those was actually pretty priceless. So I wound up giving him the Liminal Zone, as well as a Dark Knight Returns 1 first printing. If you don't know my husband Luke, he loves this story. He is diehard. Like, I joke around sometimes that this is the only comic he's ever read. And so he was over the moon to get this stuff, of course, but he would have been fine with Little Batman 3 and 4. And that just makes me laugh so much. So, anyways, that was it. For real this time, that was it. So thank you. Peace.